My 17-year-old daughter spent 3 days culinary planning for 23 people for my mom's birthday party. My dad texted last minute. We've decided to celebrate at a restaurant. It's adults only. I didn't make a scene. I did this instead. The next evening, the door started shaking. It was 10 minutes before people were supposed to start arriving when I got the text. I was standing in the doorway of the culinary space fighting back tears over a roasted beet arugula salad. Not because of the beets, though they do look vaguely like something you'd pull out of a surgery tray, but because my daughter was bouncing around the culinary space like her entire future depended on whether Grandma liked her lavender honey glaze. And maybe it did in her head. Anyway, Zoe had been up since 5 a.m. That wasn't an exaggeration or a dramatic flair. I heard her alarm go off. She'd already prepared desserts, prepped, decorated, stirred, burned one thing, then remade it, and steam cleaned the floor once because it was, in her words, giving health inspector energy. The table was set for 23 people. Handwritten name cards, fresh flowers, printed menus. The whole room smelled like thyme, butter, and something sugary I couldn't identify. It smelled expensive. Zoe had curled her hair. Her apron was clean. She was glowing in that tired, adrenaline-fueled way you only see in culinary planning competition finalists and brides with second thoughts. And then my phone buzzed. Group chat, family thread, the one we usually used for things like Happy Easter and blurry pictures of someone's casserole. It was from my dad. We've decided to celebrate at a restaurant. It's adults only. No punctuation, no apology, just that. At first, I thought I misread it, or that it was a joke. Zoe had just pulled a tray of sugar-free pear tarts out of the oven for Grandma's diabetic neighbor. She was humming. I stepped out into the hallway like I was going to answer a call. I wasn't. Not yet. I just needed to stop my hands from shaking first. I stared at the message. We've decided, not I, we. I called my dad first. It rang twice. Hey, he said, sounding cheerful. You get the message. You're not coming? I asked. My voice was steady, but only because my body had already entered some kind of survival trance. No, we changed plans. It was just easier this way. We're already here. You're at the restaurant right now? I asked. Yep, just sat down. The menu looks great. Everyone's here. A pause. Why? Because Zoe's been culinary planning for 3 days. I said, you said we'd host it here. She made enough food for 23 people. She's been up since 5 this morning. He was quiet for a second. Oh, well, tell her not to take it personally. She can freeze the leftovers, can't she? Gotta go. Waiter's here. Click. I stared at the phone. Then I called my mom. She picked up and said hello like nothing was on fire. Did you really just not come? I asked. There was a sigh on the other end. Honey, don't start. We just thought it would be more convenient. And honestly, we didn't want to risk anyone getting sick. Sick? She's 17, Jenna. It's sweet, but it's not exactly safe to serve that many people food cooked by a child. What if someone got food poisoning? She's not 5. She's taken classes. She built a menu. She sanitized everything. She even made diabetic options. Well, that's nice, she interrupted, but it's not real culinary planning, not like at a restaurant. I hung up. I didn't trust myself not to scream. I called my sister next, not because I expected better, but because part of me hoped maybe, just maybe, she didn't know. That maybe she'd been left out of the decision. She hadn't. Oh, Jenna, she said, don't kill everyone over this. She's crying. She's dramatic. She's exhausted. She's 17. She needs to learn that not everything is about her. She made food for 23 people, and none of us wanted to be her test subjects. The way she said test subjects made my jaw tighten like Zoe was some little rat in a home maze. I hung up mid-sentence. I didn't care what she was about to say. I stood there for a second trying to remember how to breathe. Behind me, Zoe was still talking. Do you think the pomegranate glaze is too sweet? I didn't want to overdo it. Also, is the lighting too warm? I wanted everyone to feel like it was a real restaurant, but not like fake fancy. And Mom, she stopped. I turned. My face must have said too much because she stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes flicked down to the phone in my hand. Then she took it. I didn't stop her fast enough. Her thumb opened the group chat, her eyes scanned. Then she saw the photo. A big, long table, glasses clinking. My sister's kids, who were barely 18, smiling at the camera with plates already full. My mother beaming, my father holding up a wine glass. Zoe stared for a second too long. Then she hit call. "Grandma," she said. I couldn't hear the other side, but I saw her nodding, and then not nodding. Her face crumpled in on itself like someone had stepped on her chest. She didn't wail. She didn't sob. She just let the tears fall slowly, like something inside her had given up, like she was embarrassed even to cry over it. I reached for her, but she stepped back. She put the phone down, gently like it was glass. Then she turned toward the cake. It was gorgeous. 3 layers. Piped rosettes. "Happy 67th, Grandma," written in dark chocolate. She stared at it, said nothing. I stood there, useless. And then I thought, no, not this time, not again. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wasn't going to let them be the ones who defined her moment or ended it. Not without seeing what happened next. I used to think the worst kind of pain was seeing your kid cry. Turns out it's watching them try not to because they don't want to make you feel bad. That night, after everyone else was clinking glasses at a restaurant, I stood in the hallway outside her bedroom holding a plate of untouched roast duck and wondering how the hell we got here. Zoe's hands trembled. She stared at the blackened pages curling like brittle leaves. The culinary space was thick with smoke, the alarm screaming in sharp, relentless bursts. Her phone buzzed again. A message, then another. She could hear her mother downstairs. That familiar tone. Sharp. Unyielding. Had she really ruined everything trying to make one perfect dish? The timer still ticked somewhere behind her. Mocking her. This wasn't just any dinner. It was for Grandma Rose. 67 years of life. 67 candles she never asked for but always blew out alone since Grandpa passed. Zoe had sworn this year would be different. She'd spent weeks planning it. Every detail. Every flavor. From the roasted beet arugula salad to the lavender honey glaze on the duck. And the cake. Oh, that cake. 3 layers. Piped rosettes. A masterpiece. Or so she thought. Now? Nothing left but ash and regret. The scent of burnt sugar clung to the air. Smoke stained the walls. And all she could think was, why does it never feel like enough? She wasn't just culinary planning a meal. She was begging for a seat at the table. For a nod. For a smile that said, "I'm proud of you." But pride doesn't fry well under pressure. And neither does silence. Minutes before guests were set to arrive, Zoe paused at the culinary space threshold. She looked around. The chaos, the mess, the tears she was fighting back. Then the door began rattling. Someone was here. Early. Too early. Would they see what she'd done? Would she see it too? Zoe stepped forward, not backward, never backward. Because tonight, Zoe finally stopped cleaning up after herself and started standing tall instead. Zoe wasn't just culinary planning. She was commanding the culinary space. Every surface gleamed. Every pan gleamed. She'd planned everything. Every spice, every garnish, every memory she hoped to leave on Grandma Rose's birthday table. This wasn't a meal. It was a message, a masterpiece, a moment begging to be seen. But family doesn't always show up for moments like these. They show up with doubt, with just kidding jabs that sting more than silence. Too sensitive. Cute hobby. Not realistic. She heard them all. Still, she stayed in that culinary space. Her hands stained with turmeric. Her heart set on proof. Proof she belonged. She sourced local honey for that lavender honey glaze. Practiced cake piping until her wrist cramped. She mapped the menu like battle strategy: roasted beet arugula salad, pan-seared duck, and a finale dessert worthy of standing ovation. Minutes before guests were set to arrive, smoke alarms screamed. Her phone buzzed again, then footsteps, then quiet. The door began rattling, just slightly. Zoe froze. Not from fear, from knowing, because standing there wasn't who she expected. It was Grandma Rose, but not the frail woman they all whispered about. No, this woman had fire behind her eyes. Familiar fire. The scent of roses drifted in, the perfume she'd worn since Zoe was 5, and something else. Spicy, defiant, like rebellion bottled into scent. Zoe's breath caught. The culinary space reeked of burnt sugar and hope lost. Yet Grandma didn't flinch, didn't frown. Instead, she walked in, picked up a fallen jar of paprika with trembling hands, then met Zoe's gaze, and whispered, so softly it almost didn't register, "Child, I know this feeling." Was it pity? Pity didn't look like that. It looked like recognition, like 2 generations finally seeing each other through the smoke and secrets. Zoe blinked. Her tears blurred the flour dust still clinging to her apron. A long pause followed. Not awkward, not tense, just seen. When did being perfect become penance? When did effort become embarrassment? Maybe never. Maybe only when no one's watching. Until now. Grandma placed the spice back in place. Slowly, carefully, as if returning not just flavor, but dignity. No lecture, no useless praise, just presence, just pride, just quiet revolution in a room full of wreckage. Today, Zoe didn't apologize for burning one dish. Today, she stopped fighting for their approval, and started standing beside herself instead. The culinary space at dawn, still humming from last night's chaos, the scent of vanilla clung to the walls like memory. Burnt coffee lingered too, sharp and bitter. Zoe stood frozen, hands still dusted with flour. Her breath fogged in the early morning air. A flash, her small hands gripping a wooden spoon. Grandma Rose's voice, soft but sure. "Perfection isn't about impressing others, Mija. It's about love." That day felt like lifetimes ago. Before chemo silenced her voice. Before silence became routine. Zoe closed her eyes. The rain tapped lightly on the window. Leaf rustle. Wind carrying secrets. Why did love feel so heavy when it was supposed to be light? She'd spent hours preparing desserts, practicing piping, mapping every dish like war strategy. Thoughtful, industrious, deeply attached. She wanted more than praise. She wanted to belong. But minutes before guests were set to arrive, smoke alarms screamed. Her phone buzzed again. Footsteps. Then, quiet. The door began rattling. Not fear, recognition. Because standing in the doorway wasn't who she expected. It was Grandma Rose. Not frail, not fading. Alive with fire in her eyes. Familiar fire. The scent of roses. And something else. Spicy. Defiant. Like rebellion bottled into scent. Zoe's breath caught. The culinary space reeked of burnt sugar and hope lost. But Grandma didn't flinch, didn't frown. She walked in, picked up a fallen jar of paprika with trembling hands, met Zoe's gaze, whispered, "Child, I know this feeling." Pity? No. Recognition. 2 generations seeing each other through smoke and secrets. When did being perfect become penance? When did effort become embarrassment? Maybe never. Maybe only when no one's watching. Until now. Grandma placed the spice back, slowly, carefully, as if returning not just flavor, but dignity. No lecture, no useless praise, just presence, just pride, just quiet revolution in a culinary space full of wreckage. Tonight, Zoe didn't apologize for ruining one dish. Tonight, she stopped fighting for their approval, and started standing beside herself instead. Every night she'd shown her list, checked marks beside each task, then asked, "Do you think they'll like it?" I told her yes, every time, but I hated that she even had to ask. On the day of the party, she woke at 5 a.m. No exaggeration. I heard pans clatter, classical music hum, tap of heels across tile as she danced between oven and counter. By 4 p.m., she looked exhausted, but glowing, like she was doing what she was meant to do. You know the rest. They didn't show. Went to a restaurant instead. All of them. Parents, sister, niece, nephew. Even the ones who usually show up late with store-bought dip made it. The only people missing? Me and my daughter, who made a 3-tier cake, decorated with Happy 67th in dark chocolate curls. They didn't just reject the food. They rejected her, and didn't even bother to lie about it. Here's what I haven't told you yet. That night, as Zoe sat pretending to scroll her phone, I got a text, a payment notification. My business card, used sometimes for family costs, charged $1,327.90 at a downtown restaurant. Same number of guests. They used my card to pay for the meal that replaced my daughter's dinner. I stood holding her tart crust, staring at that charge. First, I laughed, either that or throw a plate. Then came the still angry clarity right before a storm. They didn't just erase her. They made me pay for her eraser. And they thought we'd sit quietly. They thought wrong. I should have been the calm one, the adult, the mother with soothing words. But I wasn't in that mood. Zoe was still in the culinary space, standing stiff in front of the cake, paused at the culinary space threshold, fighting back tears. Not broken, just seen. Finally. Her hands were clenched at her sides like she wanted to scream or throw something, but not the cake. Never the cake. That was her heart on a plate. Chocolate lace piped just right, violets delicate as whispered secrets. A masterpiece. One glance and you knew. This wasn't made for strangers. This was love, decorated. She turned to me, eyes red, voice barely there. We should throw it all out. No, not happening. If they won't eat it, I said, someone else will. Like who? She didn't ask out loud, but I saw the doubt flicker across her face. I didn't have an answer. Yet. But my fingers were already moving, scrolling, calling, texting. First, my husband. Still at work? Good. He owed us that much. I need you home now. Be there in 20. Then I called everyone. Literally everyone. Sam, my dad's nephew, the one they pretend doesn't exist because he speaks truth too loud. Neighbors, old friends, women from my book club I'd barely spoken to. Even my dentist's receptionist. I told them the truth. Raw, real, no fluff. My daughter spent 3 days culinary planning for her grandmother's birthday. They didn't show. She made enough for a crowd. Come eat, not a party, a rescue. They came. Fast. By the time my husband pulled into the driveway, 2 cars were already parked. A neighbor brought wine. An entire family, hungry and kind, followed. Someone I hadn't seen in years walked in carrying tulips and teenage attitude like it was normal. Word spread. Not because I begged, because people wanted to be there. Zoe stood frozen in the hallway, stunned. "Mom, what are you doing?" she whispered. "This is supposed to be my mess, my shame." "No," I said. "This is our moment." And for once, she let me lead, help me find more chairs. But I turned to her. "You cooked for 3 days. You made something beautiful. This isn't pity, it's defiance." That shut her up, but only because her brain was clearly buffering. We shoved together 2 folding tables and started putting out the food. By the time the 3rd wave of guests arrived, Zoe had retreated to the culinary space to reheat things and whisper panic to herself over sauce temperature. That's when the journalist showed up. I didn't invite her. Someone else did. A friend of a friend who was in food media. She walked in with a small camera bag and a huge appetite for family drama. "I heard what happened," she said. Is it okay if I taste a few things? I looked over at Zoe, who was standing frozen by the oven, eyes wide. She looked like someone had just asked her to sing on live TV while holding a stool. I said yes for her and handed the journalist a plate. The journalist didn't just taste things. She photographed them, asked about ingredients, took notes. At one point, she whispered to me, "You know she's better than some of the professional chefs I've reviewed, right?" I swallowed hard. Tell her that. Eventually, the crowd settled. All 23 seats were full. Zoe peeked from the culinary space like a nervous raccoon and asked, "Should I serve the appetizer?" I said, "No, you should serve your menu." And so she did. The room quieted as the first course went out. Then came the murmurs. "Oh, wow. Is that lavender? This is incredible." By the main course, there was clapping. By dessert, someone stood to make a toast. To have I, too, the girl who cooked an entire feast, didn't quit when she was kicked down, and whose food tastes better than anyone we've ever paid to feed us. She got a standing ovation, and then, because the universe apparently has a sense of timing, a second cake appeared. Not hers, a store-bought thing someone brought as backup, but they insisted Zoe cut hers. She did. She smiled barely, but it was real, and I let myself breathe. But the night wasn't over. At 2 a.m., sleep evaded me when my phone buzzed. It was a link from the journalist, an article already live. The birthday that wasn't, how a teen chef cooked for 23, was abandoned and ended up hosting the most memorable dinner of the year. It wasn't just praise for Zoe's culinary skills, it unveiled the whole truth. How her grandmother's birthday was supposed to shine at our home. How Zoe meticulously crafted every dish, and how, without warning, the family ditched her for a restaurant instead. They even charged the bill to my card. They didn't name my parents. But Zoe? Their words pointed fingers at her like blades. I sat frozen, staring at the screen. Then my gaze moved to the comments. They were already flooding in. "She's amazing. Where can I find her food? Who leaves their own granddaughter like that?" I glanced at Zoe, sound asleep on the couch, apron still on, hands tucked like she was dreaming of that spatula. I felt a storm brewing. This wasn't over. No way. That article was already igniting a firestorm, and some folks weren't going to take it lightly. There's a peculiar silence before chaos erupts, a stillness that hangs in the air like a held breath. I was washing dishes, half of the leftover cake still waiting in the fridge. Humming a little tune, I embraced a moment of calm when, suddenly, bang, bang, bang. I dried my hands quickly and peeked out the window. They really came. My parents were on the porch, fuming in matching windbreakers, their anger palpable like a brewing storm. And behind them stood my sister, arms folded tightly as if she had rehearsed the stance in front of a mirror. I opened the door, exhaustion outweighing my hesitation, but I didn't invite them inside. "You need to fix this." I stood at the threshold, heart racing. What could I possibly say? My dad snapped, skipping hello entirely. My mom chimed in with, "Do you have any idea what you've done to our reputation?" My sister didn't say anything yet. She was letting the elders go first. Very old school of her. I blinked. What I've done? They shoved past me before I could stop them. Into my hallway, into my culinary space, into my home. Like they still thought they had some kind of authority here. "You told the media we abandoned Zoe," my mom hissed. I crossed my arms. I didn't tell them anything. A journalist came, tasted the food she made, heard what happened, and wrote about it. Honestly, I think they went easy on you. My dad jabbed a finger toward me. "You think this is funny? Everyone at church read it. Our neighbors read it. My golf group won't even reply to my messages." I raised one eyebrow. Devastating. That's when my sister stepped forward. "You need to tell them it wasn't true," she said, her voice trembling with manufactured calm. "You need to say it was exaggerated, that it was taken out of context." I stared at her. Taken out of context? Did someone hack your thumbs and send that text from the restaurant? Did I imagine the $300 charge on my card? Did Zoe hallucinate the photos you all posted from the dinner? My mom's voice cracked. She made us look like monsters. No, I said quietly. You did that yourselves. She just cooked. That's when the volume went up. They weren't even talking to me anymore. They were talking at me, around me, through me. She's just a child and she's already learned to weaponize the internet. She humiliated her grandmother for attention. You raised her wrong. She's dramatic. She's ungrateful. And then this one hit me like a slap. My mom turned toward Zoe, who had quietly walked into the hallway behind me, and said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." I didn't remember moving. 1 second, I was in the doorway. The next, I was standing square between them and my daughter. That's when my husband walked in. Zoe stood in her grandmother's culinary space, the scent of prepared desserts swirling like a warm hug. The air buzzed with echoes of laughter, hers, her grandmother's. She could almost hear the rustle of flour sacks, the gentle tick of the old oven timer. A memory surfaced, startling in its clarity. She saw herself again, 10 years old, flour dusting her cheeks, tiny hands gripping a wooden spoon too big for her. Her grandmother's voice, soft but sure, guided her. "Stir like you mean it, honey." The moment felt sacred, felt real. But now, Zoe was older, more detail-oriented, industrious, deeply attached to every detail. And this time, it wasn't just about learning a recipe, it was about creating a memorable birthday celebration for her grandmother, a woman whose quiet strength had shaped everything. Zoe wasn't just culinary planning. She was stitching generations together, bridging cross-generational perspectives, facing domestic pressures with grace, seeking familial validation and praise that never seemed to come. "Can I do this?" she whispered aloud. "Can I make something so perfect that they finally see me?" Minutes before guests were set to arrive, panic cracked the surface. One dish was oversalted. Another, ruined. Steam rose from the deep-cleaned culinary space floor, a sign of unsanitary conditions or just bad luck. Then the door began rattling. Not the front door. No, it was her door, her culinary space door, shaking like someone on the other side was losing patience. Zoe froze. What if it wasn't enough? What if she'd been too ambitious, too thoughtful, too much? But then she heard it. Not yelling this time. Just a knock. Light. Hesitant. The door swung open. There stood her grandmother, eyes soft, lips curved just slightly. "You made all this for me?" Zoe nodded, fighting back tears. "Impressive," her grandmother said, stepping into the chaos, the scent of rain clinging to her coat. That's when Zoe exhaled, because in that pause, in that quiet, she finally felt seen. We've finally stopped shielding those who hurt our daughter. I braced myself for backlash. But what came instead was a wave of support. Old friends reached out. Strangers rallied behind Zoe. Even a local chef invited her to apprentice in his culinary space over the summer. Someone from a culinary program she had long coveted said they'd be following her journey closely. We didn't celebrate, but we finally exhaled. Fast forward 1 year, and Zoe got in. Not just anywhere. The program she used to whisper about. The one she thought was a distant dream. She's still in her first year, yet she's already landing clients. People want her to cook for events, bake for birthdays, cater intimate dinners. Some even bring up the article that spotlighted her. Her food blog is soaring. She shares recipes, stunning photos, and engaging videos. And guess what? She's found her tribe, real followers, people who really see her. Zoe is different now. Not louder, not bolder, just steadier. She cut ties with my parents, and so did I. They've moved, somewhere 2 hours away. Rumor has it, too many people stopped inviting them to gatherings. Too many friends suddenly had other plans. They claimed they wanted a quieter life. Right. Zoe never got a sincere apology, and I never got my money back from that restaurant dinner. but we gained something far richer: clarity, peace. Zoe built her future with her own hands, and they can never take that away from her. So yeah, that's how my daughter's first heartbreak morphed into her first headline, how a ruined birthday became a rebirth, and how I decided to stop supporting people who thought they could silence us with guilt. I chose my daughter, and I'd do it again tomorrow. But tell me, did I go too far or just far enough? Let me know in the comments below.